a crack to start, and we radius all the edges anyway. So we stack the deck in our favor. But if you put a little extra time. Now, when you're restoring old motorcycles in the middle of the winter, it seems like every day is a unique adventure. I woke up this morning to an unexpected, really cold snap, and it's 15 degrees on our house thermometer, and the pond is frozen solid, so my day is going to change very quickly. Now, up among the rafters here, and where the old carbon fiber mufflers are, there's a thing that says pond supplies. So before I can even get started here on the day, whatever I'm going to be able to do at this temperature, certainly try to do most of it in the cellar, I've got to get my bubbler in the pond working. So this morning the pond is solid ice. What that means, I have to chop a hole in the ice, get my bubbler going, and then I can paint, work on motorcycles the rest of the day. So finally, back in a nice warm shop. This has been drying now 24 hours, so this actually at some point today I could wet sand it out, get it prepped up for the last coat of clear. I'm not sure about the graphics on this yet. John and I are still working on graphics. Actually, I could have painted these two parts the other day too, but it's not a big deal. We're going to be painting pretty much every day once the weather warms up a little. Now on Steve's project, and today will be a good day because I basically want to be indoors most of the day. I plan on doing a good detail sanding with 600 sandpaper, get that all ready for the white. But at 18 degrees, just going to be too cold out there to paint. His other part, this came out really nice. These guys that we had tremendous fisheye problems on, they're in the bank. And then there'll be a separate day. I want to really allocate this. It's got a lot of repairs and a lot more body work on that. So we have our work cut out for us, and now the idea is now, and I try to always explain this to people, I try to pick a job that's appropriate for the day. So the first thing that's appropriate today, of course I'll be indoorsy, I'll spend an hour or so with some 600 paper and get this detail sanded. Now this is the sandpaper that I found works way better than all the other. I have pretty much tried every sandpaper around. This is my favorite paper for doing what we're doing now, the detail sanding of anything. And it's 600 grit, wet or dry. Now the point is, I made some soapy water, a couple of drops of Dawn in some warm water. Oh, that warm water feels good after being outside. And I want to go back through this gently. I'm not trying to remove all the primer. I just want to see the high spots come up, and then I know I've got it. We did a lot of body work on this, but I want this to be as nice as possible. Now the odds are good if it doesn't warm up some, I'm just too cold to be outside. Sometimes I can't even hold a spray gun, it gets so cold. But if I can get this detail sanded out, even if I don't paint it today, and that's probably what's going to happen, I can get a lot of sanding done today because that allows me to have more time here where it's nice and warm, and Karen's up there cooking and making, I'll have coffee 15 times today. But this now will impart, the 600 paper will impart a really nice finish. I'll finish it off by sanding everything by hand, and then that should be ready for what I call just a dusting of primer over the spots that we're going to go through, and we will go through some spots. And it'll be ready for the white as soon as either today or tomorrow, whenever. But right now, it's 18 degrees, 15 degrees, whatever the hell, it's too cold to paint, even for me. One of the reasons for doing this with 600 grit instead of 1000 or finer grit is I want to leave that a little extra tooth on there. Now, in the spots I still have to do by hand, I'm done with the block. The sequence is always, if there's any real change in shape, I'll do a hard block. Once I have the shape I want, I'll do a soft block. but I'll always finish it up by just doing it by hand, because your hand gets in all these little corners and edges. And I can do all of this by feel, either with a glove, without a glove. But what's really good about today, Karen has just called me up for a nice hot coffee break. See what's going on in the kitchen. It is really cold out there. So during this ice cold, freezing cold day, the house smells like, what is this, a chocolate ganache on top?
Yes.
Wow, house smells great. A lot better than smelling that paint. Is this what I smell, the butternut squashes in the oven?
It's out of the oven now.
Delicious. Wow. So now, after a nice break, the final little sanding is going to be on here, and this is coming out great. I think Steve's going to really be happy with this. And we always try to do the extra little steps that, when you do your own work, you can do the extra steps. When you're doing it commercially, what happens is you're like, hey, how can we make that cheaper? How can we leave out the bacon in the BLT, you know? But when you're doing your own work, it can be super high quality. And to be honest, that's one of the things that drives me, is I know I can afford to do it to the best of my ability, and it'll be really nice when I'm done. Not sure if I paid, you know, Joe Sixpack to do this, that it would be as good. And the point I always try to make, this is not hard work. It's work, but it's not like, you know, this is not like shoveling coal on a steam engine or something. Here I am, I'm in a nice warm cellar, eating ganache cake and having coffee every 15 minutes. And I'm definitely not as cold as those fish in the pond. Now, one of the things I thought is worth mentioning, when you're doing this is where we have this dent, and I'm being really, really careful to get up in here and detail this out. I want to get this, as obviously the bodywork, as nice as I possibly can. And it seems like to a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people that enjoy watching and learning about how to do bodywork like this, there's definitely, the overall thing is just to be patient and not try to get it done in a half an hour. And in my case, this is one of the reasons I try to do basically all my restoration work in the winter and all the riding in the summer, or most of it anyway. The reason is, on a day like today when it's really cold, I gotta wait for it to warm up before I can do anything, really. But I'm not inclined to say, wow, let's get this done this afternoon, and I'm not under any pressure. And if you put yourself under pressure, or if you start doing a job like this in May and you want to be out riding and going to shows and stuff, good luck. Now, this was another thing that I had told Steve. Whenever you're sanding with the 600 Indasa, don't let the part dry. Always dry it. You're going to use up roll after roll of paper towels. That's just the way it is. And when you try to, you know, economize on one thing, usually you pay somewhere else. But now I can see this side may need an extra coat of primer, so I may as well just sand the rest of this down because we have the time today. And at the end of the day, no matter how cold it is out there, get another coat of primer on this. I'll feel better about it anyway. Now, all our extra efforts have paid off because we've picked up a lot of the high spots that you really didn't see. This spot here, and it's just going to be in my best interest and in Steve's best interest. Now notice, our part came out reasonably well. I'm not bragging or anything, but the bodywork from this Bondo work really is. So I want that to be, I really worked on that for quite a while too. I really wanted that to be nice. And hopefully it's warmed up enough out there that I can get to prime this in the next half hour or so. I'll wipe it all down, tack rag it, and it'll be ready, and I hope it's above 18 degrees. Now in this temperature and with the wind blowing, it's very difficult to paint, so we're just going to let this sit and dry overnight in the garage. Now it's up in the low 20s already here, so this should dry up. And again, no point in rushing it. I'd like to have a better day with the less wind blowing too to do the white. And we've got plenty of other projects to work on. So while that's all out there drying, and that's probably all we're going to get done on a tank today, I want to look around for this. It's got some cracks. You got a crack here, a crack here, a crack here, a crack there, a crack everywhere. I'm smoking crack. But by looking at this part now, again, I'll have time today, and I probably won't get it sanded and painted. A crack there. Now a lot of these cracks, it looks like somebody has put that glass mat on, because this obviously has had a lot of body work. What we call a rough service life. And we're going to go through it and try to do a little bit better repair or reinforce what's already there. So we notice parts need extensive body work or reinforcement. This you can see right here is quite a severe crack. Now somebody fixed the back of this. Again, I'm not going to, the purpose is not to criticize other people, but what they never did is fix this crack. So what we want to do is put a little thin CA, the capillary CA on there, spread it so some of that works its way in. Then hold it in this dimension so it's closed. The dust from the paper towel will kick it off a lot more efficiently than if we use kicker. Now, for anybody that doesn't understand CA, if you let it dry normally, it takes 20 seconds, 10 seconds, depending on the temperature and humidity and whatever. But if you put kicker on it, it accelerates it and it'll instantly be done. Well, we don't want it to be instantly done. I'm not in any rush. But I do want to get that sealed. Then I can go to the back and sand and reinforce this part. So that's the front of our crack right there. I've got 2 coats of thin CA. It's kicked off with the paper towel. Now I can turn this over and reinforce the back with some e-glass. With the paint removed, and now this is a rough surface, I can once again just put a drop of thin CA, because remember, it is capillary. And what'll happen is that's going to go down into that crack, hopefully, and prevent it from cracking again. But now the trick is I got to get the reinforcement on the back. So step one is I have sanded that down without thinning the material, and now I want to put thin CA. This is again capillary. It's going to go in, it's going to get a bite. I'm just going to rub it off. Don't let the paper towel stop. And I'll cut a piece of reinforcing material, and what I'm seeing is that a lot of pieces on here, but there's body work almost everywhere. A lot of it looks like it was done with that mat. That's probably why this stuff cracked. So now, and this is awkward to work like this because I'm working inside a fairing. Now I can spread some thick CA on this. Get my little patch of e-glass. Don't let your fingers stop walking around there or it's going to be a problem. Now that's all sanded and dried. Maybe at the end of this we'll put a layer of epoxy over all these just to make them even a little bit stronger. Well, we've got a whole bunch of them to do like that, so we better get busy. The trick, as always, is to spread the crack. And I see there's even Bondo in here. Oh, there's mystery meat going on here. Anyway, but that's not the purpose of criticizing anybody's body work. The purpose is try to share a way that works a little bit better, and anybody can do. I think this is just labor, and in this case, it's a labor of love. This is the other side of the repair, and I'm going to try to sand some of this away and get some of that capillary glue to go down inside. But it's already, and then I'll put a patch on. It's already got it looks like somebody mixed a handful of that mat and just pushed it in there and didn't even sand it down. But Again, if you learn nothing else from this, forget the mat. Just get a little here. Just a good example, good information share. Get a little roll of this cloth for making these kind of patches. The E-glass is plenty strong. Now when I put the thin CA in there, it went right through and out the other side. So that didn't even get a bond into the corner. And it's the corner that cracks. It's like when you tear a phone book. You only have to tear the cover and the rest of the phone book is toast. If you can't tear the cover, you can't tear the phone book. It's the same technology, aircraft technology. Now we got both sides done here. And I still have this crack up here that's a major crack. I'm just going to repeat this process over and over and over again. And it looks like I'll have to be spending the rest of the day, or maybe longer. Because here's the whole point. And as it goes over the table, if you don't do this now, and you put all this time, and this is going to be a tremendous amount of work to get this all nice and pretty and painted and everything, and clear and whatever, and then it cracks, you're dead. It's like building a foundation of a house. You got to do this part, the structural part first, and then the cosmetic part of sanding and doing all the paint and the priming and everything. It's an important concept. Structural first, cosmetic second. And this crack, we're doing one right after another, just going through this. Exactly the same. When I originally looked at these parts, I had no idea, I wasn't really sure until I looked at them close, how much body work was going to be required. And it doesn't really matter whether it needed 1 day, 3 days, a week, a month, because we're doing it in the middle of the winter. It's 18 degrees outside. Even a tough guy like Steve is not going riding today, unless he has a snowmobile. I don't know, because of our not quite good macro lens, if you can see how big that crack is. Again, going to do the same process over and over, and it just seems like this is going to go on forever. Let me just explain something. On a crack like this, where the crack starts, this is the most significant thing to get joined, is where the crack at the edge. Just like a connecting rod. If a connecting rod has a fracture, it has to start at a sharp edge. It's why they polish connecting rods. When you don't want something to start at a crack to start, and we radius all the edges anyway. So we stack the deck in our favor. But if you put a little extra time into the edges, just think of that old analogy of the phone book. If you can't tear the cover of a phone book, you're never going to tear the phone book. And a crack it's a very simple way of thinking about it, but and I'm going to reinforce everything from the back too, and there's a lot of little spots like this. Even the little reinforcing tabs here that you're supposed to hold it on, I'm going to do the CA thing and then reinforce it on the back. Got that little reinforcement there. Now there's no point not reinforcing the other two, because if one broke, guess what? It's like replacing one windshield wiper. Now I know you don't see how much work went into this today. A lot of work went into it. But we managed to use up a day that, well, it was really too cold to paint outside any extensive amount of painting. We did get the primer on. We got this part ready for a final sand out, but it's been a long day. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. And what I love about this kind of work, you can do it inside. You can do it in the winter. You spend almost no money. I mean, the CA probably is 20 bucks to paint. I don't know what Steve spent on paint. Sandpaper. When you're done, and you've added probably way more than that money to the value of the bike. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video. That's why we share the information.